Jeff Paterson of Rinkwide Vancouver, Canucks reporter, took in Talkett's media availability earlier today at Rogers, and he joins us now. How are you, Jeff?
Happy New Year, guys. Yeah, doing all right.
Yeah. Thanks for the cover over the break. Appreciate it.
What did Coach have to say today, Jeff? What caught your ear?
Oh, there were a couple of things. It was short and sweet, but no real surprises. No update on Thatcher Demko, so that is why Silovs has been recalled. It is en route from Montreal. Just wild the way it works that he will fly commercially across the continent today and then get on the team charter and fly right back to Montreal tomorrow and probably be dropped off, although we'll have to wait and see. There was no update, as I said, on Demko. And look, we'll take them at face value that it is back spasms. Went down awkwardly. But we know with his history that I think everybody collectively was holding their breath there last night and hope for the best and see where it goes. Tough test for Kevin Lankinen against his former team, the Predators, tonight, having played last night, flying back from Seattle and getting right back after it, but seems to be up to the challenge all of the time. Doesn't sound like there's going to be any lineup changes. They don't have any extra healthy forwards, so same 12 up front, and they do have Brandstrom, but Tocchet said he liked what he saw from his sixth defenseman, and so you were talking about Guillaume Brisebois there. His first NHL game in nearly 2 years, March of 2023, was the last time he played at this level. Suffered just a brutal head injury in an exhibition game. Late in an exhibition game out in Abbotsford, was there that night when Brandon Tanev took a big long run at him and hit him high and hard into the end glass. And so thought maybe there'd be a little payback, but whatever the case, Brisebois, a winner, along with his team in his return to the National Hockey League last night. So it really is all hands on deck. I guess and it's still unclear. I should mention that Elias Pettersson and Philip Hronek both skating at Rogers Arena this morning, so that's good news on two fronts there. Hronek is still tracking to be an 8-week recovery, but the fact that he's back on skates in the first week of January and has been for a couple of weeks. And Pettersson, Rick Tocchet said both Pettersson and Hughes will travel with the team, and both are getting close. So we were led to believe that Petey would be back before Hughes. I still think that is probably the case. And by playing a little bit of the long game here, maybe Elias Pettersson ready to go after the weekend off here in Montreal to start the road trip. Quinn Hughes, just don't know at this stage, but the fact that he's traveling, and it sounds like he's going to be an option sooner rather than later, that has to be seen as nothing but good news for the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, and they get their first victory with Hughes out of the lineup. And they get above the playoff bar, Jeff, where they had sunk after that loss in Calgary earlier in the week. What's your sense? How closely are these guys watching the standings and where they sit?
Well, they have to be aware of it. They're not even at the midway mark of the season, though, so I do think that, observation with a small O maybe at this stage. Let's see what the month brings. Like, they've got this gauntlet. They're starting out on a 5-game road trip. We've talked about the difficulty of the schedule, and it's not just the road trip. They come back off the road. My goodness, it's Los Angeles, it's Edmonton. The Washington Capitals are here in Vancouver. So the rest of the month, mostly road games, and maybe that's good news for the Canucks because that's where the majority of their wins have come. But the challenge is a steep one for this hockey club, and so all wins right now are good wins. And I think it was important to get a victory, even if it got a little shaky there at the end in Seattle. Had they squandered that one as well, like you can imagine, there's already enough sort of noise adjacent to the Canucks. I think that noise level would have heated up that they just can't win without Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson. So I think for their own psyche, it was important to bring in the new year with a victory. And we said, like, this portion of the schedule, the Seattle and Nashville, like, these are the gettable ones. And even Montreal's playing better. But when you look at what's ahead on the road trip, Montreal looks like it might be an opportunity for the Vancouver Canucks. So, I think it was important to put those points in the bank last night. But my goodness, guys, we saw what happened on Saturday here against Seattle. We saw what almost happened last night in Seattle. It happened in Utah just before the break where they had the 2-0 lead in the third period. Let that one get away. It happened on opening night against the Calgary Flames. So playing with a lead, late leads, and yes, shorthanded, and Quinn Hughes would be logging significant minutes late in those high-leverage situations, but he's not here right now. And how about Tyler Myers going for 25 minutes and 47 seconds? He has not played that much in the National Hockey League since 2021. It's now 2025. So some time has passed since Tyler Myers has been leaned on to log that sort of workload. And now the challenge comes and turn around and doing it again, right? Like, he turns 35 a month from now. you might get away with it, and they did last night in Seattle, and he contributed, he scored a goal. But this is the challenge now for Lankinen to go back-to-back on consecutive nights, and for guys like Tyler Myers logging that much ice time one night. What does he have left in his veteran tank tonight against Nashville?
And Talk had said that he was so gassed he couldn't play much in overtime, which is why Vinny Desharnais got overtime time, which is
give him credit. Nice pass.
Something. JT Miller does not get a lot of ice time. He should have fresh legs.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't get played more after a rather dry night for himself, what does that say about what's going on and Rick Tocchet's usage of JT Miller? Because it doesn't stand alone. It's not the only 15-minute night he's had in the last fortnight.
No, I think it's important to point out, he and his line were really good in Calgary the other night. Didn't score at even strength, but drove play. That trio with Besser and DeBrusk had a nice night, generated the majority of the Canucks shots. Besser scored on the power play. And so, they played well in Calgary. And then 2 nights later, you could tell early on, like Brock Besser's second shift of the night was 1 minute and 52 seconds last night. And he turned the puck over. Teammates turned the puck over. Couldn't get off the ice. Now, of course, that was all peanuts compared to what Jamie Alexiak went through in the second period when he had the 4 minute and 12 second shift. But we're talking about the Canucks here, so we won't worry too much about the Kraken defenders. But it just a strange night to see JT Miller as the low 5-on-5 ice time guy at just a shade over 10 minutes. And look, he doesn't have a shot attempt in the hockey game. That's been far too common for JT Miller. It's 11 games now without a goal, and that spans his personal leave as well. Now, we should note, Matt, he did beat an NHL goaltender last night in the shootout, so he got that feeling back.
I'll put myself on errors and omissions for
he
that.
Got the feeling back at the very end, and that move works for him. Just comes wandering in from the left side and goes just over the pad. But 11 games without scoring in the run of play, and 2 penalties, the second of which cost the Canucks. He's in the box when Matty Beniers scores. So, just a weird night for JT Miller. But you're right. I think if there was message sending, I guess we'll find out here in a hurry. Of course, the last time the Preds were in town, there was some real message sending when he sat at the end of the bench for much of the third period. So it's a little ironic that look who's back in town here. But the upshoot might be that playing 15 minutes, he will be fresh and ready to go. And can he deliver one of those sort of JT Miller signature performances that they're going to need? Because, look, it's great to get a goal from Max Sasson, and it's nice to see Tyler Myers score goals, but you're not banking on those guys. There are some other players. Like, they went into the game last night in Seattle. Their top 2 centers, the way the lineup is currently constructed, Miller and Piasuter, are both in double-digit goal droughts, and that's playing with fire. I mean, if those guys are your top 2 centers, they're playing a lot, or in theory should be playing a lot, and you need a little bit more there. So it's good to see Connor Garland scored in 2 of the last 3 games after a little bit of a slump for him as well. But if the offense isn't going to come from those top-end guys, then it's just going to make the challenge that much more difficult.
Is there a chance Miller's injured, do you think? Is there a chance to,
I think there's a chance he's fighting through something, yep.
Like, is that why he's not shooting? He's in the shootout, but that's more of a deke than it is a true shot, right?
Yeah, this whole season now, as we get to the midway mark with JT, is just so confounding. And of course, it started with him playing through something, and then you thought maybe stepping away for 10 games would allow the body to heal up. But really, we haven't seen the loud, fiery games from JT Miller since his return. So I don't know. He was available. It was pretty much a coach's decision. And as Rick Tocchet said, there were just other guys that had earned the opportunity. It was nice to see Dakota Joshua getting involved physically. Still not much of a bottom line. Nils Höglander is showing some signs of life, but it's up to 30 games now, guys. And I was looking at this. When Sasson scored last night, Max Sasson in 15 games has now equaled Nils Höglander for the season and Dakota Joshua as well. All of them with 2 goals. So good for Max Sasson. For those other 2 guys that combined for 40 plus last year, not so much, but I did see signs of life, I thought, from both Dakota Joshua and Nils Höglander. So you want to believe if the effort is there, it's going to lead to more positive events. Hey, Höglander got a shift in overtime. They were giving out overtime shifts like it was Halloween.
Yep, you get one and you get one. And what they weren't getting was shots. That continues to be an issue, Jeff. I saw your tweet about the 4 segments of the season broken into 9 games. And this last one being fewer than 23 shots per game, 22 last night. So the average comes down even more. Besser still not wearing an A. Garland and Myers are wearing the A.
No, Besser had an A last night. Besser had the A.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Put myself on errors and omissions again.
New for 2025. Brock Besser back with the A.
Okay. And he has tied Alex Burrows for 10th all-time in franchise goals. His next goal will break the tie and put him 3 back of Thomas Gradine for 9th. He's 8 back of Bo Horvat for 8th place all-time with the Canucks career goals. Okay. I do want to ask you our questions here, our poll question and our question, our discussion about Miller and Paterson. What did you make of Brad Richardson's comments, Jeff, that he went to JT, 3-4 years ago now, and said, you're going to lose the kid if you keep riding him like that?
Yeah, look, Brad Richardson covered him twice in his 2 stints with the Canucks. The second one was remarkably brief, picked up on waivers so that they had NHL bodies and some veteran presence in the locker room late for that season. Always found him to be a straight shooter, an engaging guy, not here to pick sides, just was asked a question and gave an answer. And I think that answer lines up with a lot of sort of other reports that we have had out of that Canucks locker room that JT's hard on guys. And we think that the source of this friction has been just how hard he has been at times on Elias Pettersson. Look, in October, I was there at the practice when he challenged Elias Pettersson, not to a fight, but, got in his face, gave him the cross check. Like, this has sort of been par for this course, I suppose. So I wasn't surprised. I guess I was surprised just because I thought maybe we had moved past the whole storyline and now out of market podcasts, and it seems everybody around the National Hockey League is talking about it again. So that was really the surprise, I guess, to me, was that Brad Richardson was on with Shane O'Brien and Scotty Upshall, and so the question came up. But, nothing in his response really came as a massive surprise to me. And so, I think to me, it just kind of underscores what I think we all believe is sort of at the crux of this issue.
Yeah, and I don't think the storyline is going away until one of them goes away, Jeff. So,
well, I think winning makes it go away as well.
Winning is the other. If you go and rip off a bunch of victories and everything looks tickety-boo, sure.
That's the biggest problem here. And that's if people wonder why is it still being talked about, because it's clearly affecting play. If one or both of these guys went off and led the Canucks A in scoring or B to winning, if one of those two things happen, I think this story does go away, because you think, they may not love each other, but it's okay. They can still do their job. Well, it appears right now that it's affecting their jobs, and that's the biggest problem here.
Because both of them.
I guess I thought maybe that like the Christmas break came at perfect time, and I thought, okay, a couple of days away, and then Elias Pettersson is not in the lineup, and so it's not impacting his performance right now because he's not playing for the Canucks, and I kind of thought that may just tamp down the noise a little bit as well. But I'll take the L on that one, because the noise seems like it's almost as loud as it was in those days leading up to the holiday break right now.
So Jeff Elliott is reporting they're listening on both guys. Is that the best course of action here? Should they pursue both tracks and then just make the best deal from there?
Yeah, and I heard you guys talking about a perfect world. There'd be some reconciliation and they'd get on with it, but we know it's not a perfect world, and they obviously have more intel than we do on a daily basis and on the ground. We pick up the breadcrumbs and talk about them in that regard. So maybe they realized that, yes, it's just reached a point that is untenable now, and if that's the case, then cut your losses and find some component parts that can mesh and work together and hopefully allow this organization to move forward. It's just, obviously individually, neither one of those guys has had the season that they had a year ago. The hockey club hasn't. And can they get value? Like, I know your poll question is asking about the right deal, but I mean, it's all hypothetical. So I don't know what the right deal is. And if you're trading a 103-point guy, what can you get in return, or is the value in just clearing the air and turning a page? You're getting something in return, but are you getting something that's close to equal value? And the other thing too is all this talk, whether it's Noah Dobson or whether it's K'Andre Miller, like that's fine. But if you take either one of these pieces up front. Like, what's left? There's nothing in the pipeline, particularly at center ice. We know how thin this organization is down the middle. This is a team that got to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup playoffs last year, second round. And what do they look like moving forward if you take one of these two pieces? And we're not that far removed from the Bo Horvat deal, where they thought they were the envy of the National Hockey League in terms of strength and depth down the middle. So, but look, we've all watched. Like, neither one of these guys has performed particularly well. And is it because of this friction that's holding them back? And it very well may be. So, yeah.
Well, a few things there. Number one, remember when they had Luongo and Schneider were the envy of the National Hockey League in goals? They couldn't possibly trade both goaltenders in a short period of time.
Boom, there it is.
Somebody called it. Number two, I'm not sure you're trading a 105-point player anymore.
No,
with regards to Miller or Paterson. Yeah, I think if you think it's untenable, you have to move on. And in terms of the hypothetical of the poll, Jeff, Hedel and Schneider, or Trocheck and Miller, something like the Keandre, something like that for JT. You get your center back, you get a top four defenseman back.
I like the idea of trying to replace some of the strength down the middle there. The idea of a straight swap of JT Miller for a high-profile defenseman, and we know that this team needs help on the back end. I understand that. But it's just this idea of how do you move forward if you've really taken a huge piece out of the forward group for the Vancouver Canucks. So,
wholeheartedly agree. Yep.
What I don't get,
you got to get a center back. You got to get a center back. If you can get a center and a top four defenseman, that's the best you're going to do in this environment with both guys on a poor season, with JT having trade protection and thus a limited market. Again, if you are at the point where you feel it's untenable and that the cost of keeping them is a detriment to the hockey club, then I think you've got to cut your losses. And if somebody gives you a second line center and a top four defenseman, I think you got to make that deal.
What I don't get, guys, is we saw their reaction as shortly as a week and a half ago when they both responded so sharply to the storylines. It's lasted a long time, this whole storyline. If I was one of those two, I would say, let's figure this out because we can't operate like this. Like I just, Jeff, are you a little surprised that there hasn't been some sort of, and we haven't seen the two of them in the room together because of the injury to Paterson, but that is the best route to winning this season, isn't it? Is both of them having this come to Jesus moment of reconciliation?
Yeah, I mean, unless they're just too far down the road. And again, we've heard stories. I've talked to you guys about feeling a weird vibe around that group. But ultimately, what's happened behind closed doors, what has led to this purported friction, we don't know. Like, in terms of a flashpoint that maybe there's just no getting past. Like, we can always, we talk all the time about, hey, coworkers don't have to like each other. And that, fair enough. But not every example is the same. And like, I don't know enough about the nuts and bolts of the ultimate issues. If it's just JT riding Elias Pettersson, can't JT back off a little? Can't Elias Pettersson suck it up a little bit and find some middle ground? If it was that simple, you'd think that they would have reached that point by now, and yet the story persists. So who knows? Was it a perfect storm last year? Like, I mean, it is feeling more and more like last year just was a perfect happening on so many levels for the Vancouver Canucks. And even at that, it only got them to the second round of the playoffs. So we're sort of back to reality of what happens when things don't go perfectly for a professional sports organization. And that's why they are where they are, one night below the playoff bar, and now have climbed right back above it, but still precariously holding on to the final playoff spot in the Western Conference.
All right, Jeff, you got a show to do tonight. Rink-wide Vancouver. We'll be listening after the game against Nashville here at Rogers Arena, and we'll catch up with you next week, my friend, with the Canucks on this Eastern Road.
I won't go deep on the Predators here, but again, for this Canucks team, third game in 4 nights in 3 different cities with a little bit of travel in there. Preds haven't played since Tuesday. I know that they have the fewest wins in the National Hockey League. Everybody knows the story with the Predators. Slow start, Jonathan Marchessault starting to come along now, 5 goals in his last 5 games. They haven't played, though, since a loss in Minnesota on Tuesday. So they're going to be rested. They've been here in Vancouver. They were lying in wait as the Canucks played in Seattle and hustled home. So Preds have already beaten the Canucks. Nashville has 3 road wins all season, guys. 2 in regulation and one of them right here at Rogers Arena on Grey Cup Sunday. So the Canucks of all teams better realize that even though the Preds are way down in the standings, they can rise up on any given night. So let's see what happens. And the Canucks are 0-3 on the back half of back-to-back so far this year. You can't go through a season just throwing those games and, hey, back-to-back.
No.
You've got to find a way to grind out some points.
Yeah, and of course that Nashville loss was the JT Miller benching.
Yes,
follows.
yeah,
exactly. After the 10-game absence, and I hate when the teams lay in wait for you in your city. Always hate that.
And the funny thing is, guys, after all that we've just talked about, if they win tonight, they will equal their high water mark above 500 on the season. Like 7 games above NHL 500 is the best they've been.
Really?
They win to like they can sort of get back to sort of to square one a little bit if they win here. But it just, I don't think there's a whole lot of confidence.
They have done a nice job of mitigating the outright losses, right? All those
they have.
right-hand columns allow them to sort of keep the long losing streak.
Kicking the can a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, Jeff.
Have a great weekend, guys.